Good day and welcome to Motorose Music. I am Jeff Thiel, the host of the show. Today, not going to have any playing today for this particular video. It's just going to be a discussion. It's one that I've been wanting to have, about 6 months into doing this channel. And mainly it's because I get comments, and most of my comments by far are positive. But I do get a lot of negative comments about, these not being American-made products. Most of the things I have on here being American-made products. It's funny, I never hear from, most of the viewers here are from the United States, but I have a high percentage from Canada, Mexico, the UK and Australia are probably, besides Canada, the United States, UK, Australia, speaking English. But I do get some from other countries, but from Canada, UK, and Australia, I never hear these comments, and I just assume it's, in the United States, we're used to, I guess, having made for, a couple centuries, all of our stuff, or most of our stuff. Let's put it that way. So perhaps that's where it's coming from. Not that the UK and Australia haven't made their own stuff. I'm just trying to come up with something. But typically it comes from the United States, where I hear the comments. And I'm not going to get too far into, I know there's social and political slants to these that are valid points. Believe me. I understand this is a very nuanced and can be a very deep topic, and I'm not going to go too deep into that type of stuff because then, we're off in the weeds somewhere. But I'm going to tell you, at least give you an idea where I come from, why I buy what I buy as far as demoing on the channel. I've got my Les Paul and my Strat here, and I've got my Gibson acoustic over here. Those are a few, and then I have a Harmony acoustic. It's a 1969 Harmony H162 in the back, and then it's mostly Chinese, Vietnamese, and some Mexican, a couple Indonesian stuff. So, but these items here, the Les Paul in particular, are ones, number one, I've always wanted a Strat. I've always wanted a Les Paul. The biggest driving force for me of getting the Les Paul was I want to have some of my things here that I can pass to my kids, that it's at least some sort of an heirloom. I have no delusions about the West Creeks or any of these others being worth, $5 20 years from now. Now they might, some of the quirky stuff coming out of Japan in the 70s did become, semi-collectible. You get into the hundreds to $1,000, some of that, Taisco stuff and whatever. So they may be like that, but they're not going to be American-made stuff. They're not going to be like PRS, Gibson, Fender, those type of things. No delusions about that. So anyways, what spurred this is I've been wanting to do it for a while, because really anytime a video gets some traction, I have videos that do well and some that don't. The more I have one that's over 55,000 views, got the most comments, so you get more. It's probably about the same percentage, but I will read some just to show you or let you, give you an idea of some of the things. I'm not going to call the people out. I'm not here to down anybody. I understand where they're coming from. I don't necessarily agree with what's behind what they're saying, or maybe what it means, at least what my interpretation. I have to wear glasses. I need to blow this text up, but I have it here so I can read, and I won't read some of them are long, and I'll just read a few. So this one was about the IYV, this guitar back here. I don't know if you can see it in the shot. I can't see. So anyways, it's a Chinese ripoff of a Schecter. If you as a company have anything made in China, once they can make it, they steal it for themselves and rob you of your IP, intellectual property. You can buy cheap riff-offs, but why should you? Well, I because it's cheap. I mean, it's the difference of, let's be real, folks. I have right now just over 1,000 subs. I'm not sponsored. Nobody gives me any of this stuff except for the Glary. That was, just total piece of junk. They did send me that guitar. Nobody else is sending me this stuff. So I'm buying these. This is all out of pocket. These are all my opinions. I try to do these videos as real as possible. By that I mean I mic them. I don't layer the stuff. I don't do all types of EQing and all this other stuff to make it sound better. I'm not answering to a company that has sent me, like I would have loved Fender to send me one of those vintage twos. But I'm I'm in no position to be given free stuff like that. So, but there is a certain expectation when somebody's giving you a 25 or 2,200, however, those are like just over $2,000. You can be honest, but you can't be too honest if you happen to get a dud. And usually they check these things over. But anyways, I am buying these. It's all out of pocket. I could afford to buy Les Pauls and Fender Strats all day long. I don't know if I'd be doing this channel. I'd just be, I probably wouldn't have, I have a job. I have a full-time job that I work, and I do this because I enjoy doing it. I try to do it as often as possible, but I've got kids and all that, and we're busy, and a wife, sorry, Heather. And so, yeah, I do this because I love it. It's fun. It's a hobby at this point. Will it get huge? And maybe I'll do this to actually make more than what am I up to now? I think so far since being monetized, past 2 weeks, I've made almost $11. So there you go, big bucks, kids. You can see why I buy the Chinese stuff or the Vietnamese stuff. I like doing it because not everybody can spend $2,800, whatever these Les Pauls cost now. Okay. And there's probably, just as many videos on this as are the cheap ones. There's plenty of them out there. There's plenty of rock stars that play these. I do them because some of them are pretty damn good. And if I can find a $150 guitar that is good, it's not going to be a freaking Les Paul. I get that. It's not going to be an American Strat or, an American PRS. I have never portrayed any of these as being better than any of those guitars. I might question, hey, is this a 335 killer? Question mark. And when I do the video, I say, well, this thing's great, but yeah, it's not a Gibson. So anyways, I'm going off. I knew this would happen. I would start going all kinds of down rabbit holes. So let's go to the next comment. This was on the West Creek ES, it's supposed to be ES 335. It's a 333 by West Creek. Chinese, I'm assuming, not for patriots. Okay. Why? Just because it's made in China does not make me unpatriotic. I mean, I would like to ask this person, not going to say their name, is everything you have in your house made in the United States? Your light bulbs, your toaster, your oven? No. Most of the crap in my house is made in China. That's just the way it is. I've said this, I may have put it in a comment, I don't know if I've said it before, but I'm going to say it now. Having stuff made in the United States or insert European country, Canada, North America, I know, and not in China, that cargo ship has sailed a long time ago. All right. It's to turn that around now. I don't know how you do it, to where we're making, my brother and I were talking, I wish I had it here. It was an old coat hanger from the 40s or 50s for a dry cleaner. It was this beautifully made, like dovetail jointed, solid wood hanger with, the little rod there to hang your pants on and your suit coat and This, it was beautiful. And I think you go into I don't know, Target or whatever, they might have wood hangers like that, or probably like $5 a piece, made in China. This is just something they gave away at like a dry cleaners back in the day. That's just the way they made stuff. I have, hopefully I can cut this, but this is my grandfather's. Let's see. Ah, anyways, I don't know if that'll come out. Maybe I'll take a picture of it. This is a box for white chalk crayon. Now, I don't know how old this is. 60, 70, 80, I don't know. Maybe 100, I don't know. I have to, maybe I'll do research. I probably won't. But my point is, look at this thing. This is a wood box with these fine dovetail joints, like, that's the way stuff was done then. Now, mainly, we didn't have ways to make things cheaper. Cardboard certainly wasn't being used at that time, but this is when everything was made in the United States and, was made to last. That's why this box is still around and a cardboard one is not. So again, here, I'm going to be going all over the place, folks. I may have to edit a lot of this shit out. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, here's another one on the West Creek 333. Stop buying knockoffs. They all suck. None of them are good. That one speaks for itself. Here's one on another West Creek. Oh, my bubblegum colored one. That's the double cutaway. It's not uncommon for a Chi-Com. That's a favorite new word for Chinese communist Chi-Com companies, to have someone write the data sheet and it never gets proofread. I have no idea why he said that. I understand kind of what he's saying, but I said that guitar was great, and he was, I don't know. But it's the fact that putting Chi-Com, we've got to, they're communists. We have to get that in there. I understand there's all kinds of problems with China. I'm not saying there isn't. So here's another one on the double cutaway from West Creek. You do know that these come from the same factory, Firefly Grote, IYV. They're all from Vietnam. Now this was West Creek, so I have no idea why he mentioned those guitars, because the West Creeks are made in China. They're not made in Vietnam. I'm sure I told him that. The pickups, electronics are made for $5 American. Now, I asked him to please point to where he got that information. So, and that's another problem I have with these. I understand the guy's probably pretty close, but he's pulling that number out of his ass. Just say this stuff doesn't cost them much to make, and I'll say, yeah, no kidding, it's made in China. That's why I paid $140 for that guitar that I love. You can't make that in this country. Our currency values are way off from each other, right? China does something to theirs, and it is what it is. So to get a double cut made in this country is, it's $1,800. Actually, is the Rick Beato one's over $2,000. I think the single cuts are $1,800, which I would love to have, and I may get one. So anyways, he goes on. The wood is garbage. Now here we go again with hot rodding, cheap guitars. Why bother? I'm not saying buy a $2,000 guitar, but wasting money on firewood is just plain stupid. All right. These are, the worst of them, and they're not bad comments. If there's any, I have comments that are held. If anybody gets stupid, just insulting, I just kind of, at least these are somewhat thought out. So I leave them there, and usually we'll have some sort of back and forth. So yeah, those are the comments. They're not bad. So I want to kind of steer myself. If you're still with me, hopefully you are. It's to give you a background on myself a little bit, so you know where I'm coming from. As far as my back and why this stuff means something to me. Um, I live in the Portland metro area now, and I've been here for God, 14 years now. Jeez Louise, I am getting so old. And before that, I lived on the East Coast in southeastern Virginia, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, that area. Lots of huge military towns around there. Coast Guard, Navy. There was an Army base there, Fort Story in Virginia Beach, right there off Shore Drive, for those of you that are familiar. So I lived there for 20 some years, but where I call home, it's probably where it's getting to the point where it's the place I live the least. But when you get old, sometimes your hometown is the place where you haven't lived, or the place that you lived the shortest amount of time. So yes, I grew up in the western Pennsylvania area. I was born in southeast Ohio, and I lived in the northern Panhandle, West Virginia, coal steel town, and then I lived and went to school north of Pittsburgh, kind of right about 30 minutes north of Pittsburgh and an hour south of Erie, a place called Elwood City, Pennsylvania. And there's a saying, it's still there in Elwood. I think they've recently redone the sign. And what Elwood City builds Elwood City. And that's true. And that's true for any place in the world. Wherever you're from, city, state, as far as these provinces, countries, that's what you're proud of. That's what you're made of, in a figurative way. Um, and so I understand why people make these comments. I just wish they were a little more thoughtful and maybe more nuanced than they are. It's just kind of coming from a place where I just don't like China, or I don't like Indonesia, Vietnam. I kind of highly doubt if I had a Canadian made guitar or something made from the UK or Germany that I'd get any of those comments. Those are kind of seen as okay, probably because a lot of our, at least initial heritage of this country maybe came from those places. Not Canada, but UK, Germany. I don't know. I am just kind of taking the bright side of it. And so, anyways, back to where I grew up. My grandfather, he worked in the coal mines for a short period of time there. I think when he was in Ohio, maybe in West Virginia, but retired from the railroad, worked there 30 some years. Was a union guy. He retired in, I think it was 81. May have been 1980. I know my grandmother had cancer and he retired at 64. So, yeah, 81. It was 1981. And never made $30,000 in his life. So he was just a hard worker. And man, he was one of those guys that you hear the saying, anytime he would let, money go, you could hear the eagle scream. That was him. Those of you who aren't aware, any of the people outside, we have, United States has eagles on their currency, whether it be a quarter or a dollar bill or whatever. So, yeah, and his dad worked for the phone company. I still have some of the old Ma Bell tape measures from when he worked there. I have a couple of them, in fact. And my dad worked for the railroad. He was an engineer. Not the kind that works in the office, the guy that drove the train engineer. And yeah, he was a union guy. And, he drove nothing but Fords, still does. My grandfather mostly drove GM cars. Buicks, Chevys, Oldsmobiles and Buicks. The older he got when he was retired, but when he was younger, it was Chevys. So, yeah, I mean, we were, and that's where I come from. So I understand the concept of having pride in stuff that's made in America. It's funny. I have this here. This is an old General Electric. This is my grandfather's. It still works. It's made in Japan. This is when I first started noticing you had radios, tape recorders, stereos, basically. This stuff was made in Japan. We had Walkmans later on, probably late 70s, early 80s. And then you saw like the cheap we call them 5 and 10 or 5 and dime. Those were the dollar stores back in the day. And that stuff was made in Hong Kong. You would see Hong Kong on it. And I'd ask my mom, where's Hong Kong? And she told me, well, that's where they make that cheap stuff. So that's all I knew of Hong Kong at the time. So, yeah, and I remember, guitars starting to become a thing, like when Fender started making their stuff in Japan, and we were like, oh, that's junk. That's what I thought. Oh, that's junk. It's just Japanese stuff. You didn't buy that. You'd want to buy an American Fender. You want to buy not Chinese, Japanese stuff. So those were my thoughts back then. I understand that because that's where I came from. You just you bought American, but things have changed. It's gotten harder and harder to nearly impossible to buy things that are made in America that, aren't cars, guitars, some furniture, expensive furniture, some amps, expensive amps. What else is there? I mean, there's maybe some appliances, but very few of those are being made in this country now. So it's just changed. It's changed. Tax breaks were given for companies to uproot and go to China. That's hard to believe, but that's fact. They were given tax breaks to move to China. Some companies, strong arm American companies into moving their factories to China as well. It's just cheaper for them. They can make more profit off it that way. That's the way it is. So I don't know if it'll ever turn around. I don't know. I do notice most of the venom is for the Chinese stuff. Not so much the Vietnamese or Indonesian or the South Korean stuff. Not even the Mexican stuff anymore. That's kind of okay. I'm speaking as an American of what I hear from Americans. I honestly, I don't really hear this from people outside the country. If there is anybody that happens to watch this, maybe from Canada, the UK, and I know there are people in the UK have feelings about, I'd be curious. It's probably more towards maybe Asian imports. I'm guessing American imports are still okay there in the UK and Canada and Mexico, my guess. So please let me know if I'm wrong. And that's the one thing I do notice. There is more venom towards China, and there's a number of reasons, and I get that. They don't necessarily operate on a level playing field, but it is what it is at this point, and until something's done by probably the governments of all these other countries, that's not going to change. It's not going to change. And for a channel like mine, it's just, if I want to have content, I got to buy sub $200 guitars. I can't afford to buy $300. I haven't bought a $300 guitar for this channel. It's just, it starts to add up. I'm buying a few guitars a month. Hell, I start running out of room, but I'd rather run out of space than money. So there is that. And then I mod some of these, and some people I get some shit for that as well, modding cheap guitars. And I'm not going to spend more on tuning keys and pickups than I have on the guitar itself. I'll get close. It'll be a balance, but I'm not going to put a $200 pickup in a $140 guitar. I know Seymour Duncan's cost less than that. You know who you are. It was just a round number. That was a comment I had here this morning. So anyways, that's pretty much all I wanted to say, is just where I'm coming from. And part of it is I give you a background of my history, why I buy the things I buy. I couldn't afford to do this channel like I do if I was buying American-made stuff. You just couldn't do it. Nobody's given me anything. Maybe I'll get big enough and people will give me things. Then they'll watch my videos and they'll probably say, all right, you ain't getting any anymore, because I'm pretty upfront about my stuff, and I don't doctor the sound. I record the amp, and that's what you hear. I don't double and triple track stuff, and double and triple track meaning, I'm not saying I record it a number of times, but copy tracks to make it sound thicker and bigger. I record it. That's what it is. The way I have it set up here is what you hear, and that's what I want people to know when they watch this, that when you're hearing the stuff, it's as close of a representation as I can make of this stuff, that you can, using an amp, mics, and then editing it into a video and then uploading it to YouTube. I get as close as I can get. And with that said, that's enough. I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, for lack of a better term. If you've made it this far, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and leave a comment. I would really love to hear people's comments, especially if you're outside the United States. I know most of my viewers are within the United States, but I do have UK, Australia, Canada, and some other countries as well. Please leave a comment, and remember, keep rock alive.